Association is a very powerful principle and it transcends all religions. In the company of saintly persons, even if one is not very saintly, eventually by the company of saintly persons, one becomes saintly. In the company of drunkards, even if one drinks mineral water, after a while eventually one will become a drunkard. The reason why we are here is because we are actually all seeking for like-minded association. Like-minded association is not just sitting together, but it's actually sharing of the hearts, revealing of the mind, and trying to understand the problems of life that we all face. In the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vedic culture, they give us so much of insight into how practically we can balance living in this world while trying to understand who we are, essentially. So, today we thought we will take a nice verse from the Gita, which is very practical, very important for all of us, and then try and speak something on it according to our limited understanding. We'll chant Jai Radha Madhava, and then after that we can look at the verse. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Nitai Gaur. If you have access to the Bhagavad Gita, if you have your phones and they have the Bhagavad Gita on them, then the verse that we want to look at is the 5th chapter, and the verse is the 18th chapter. 18th verse, 5th chapter. So it's 5:18 of the Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shri Chaiva Swapakecha Panditaha Samadarshinaha Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Panditaha Samadarshinaha Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. Maybe we can have one Prabhu, one ladies, someone who can actually chant, that would be nice. Please.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Panditaha Samadarshinaha.
Mataji's, let's go.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshina.
Vidya, with education, Vinaya, and gentleness, Sampanne, fully equipped, Brahmane, in the Brahmana, Gavi, in the cow, Hastini, in the elephant, Shuni, in the dog, Cha, and Eva, certainly, Swapake, in the dog eater, the outcast, Cha, respectively, Panditaha, those who are wise, Samadarshinaha, who see with equal vision. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Please repeat the translation. The humble sage by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, outcast. Please hear the purport. A Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, and an elephant may be different from the point of view of species. But these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme. For the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As far as the bodies are concerned in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone, because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma, regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahmana, although the body of a Brahmana and that of an outcast are not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the supersoul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. The similarity in the quality of the soul and the supersoul, however, does not make them equal in quantity, for the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. The similar characteristics of the soul and supersoul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the supersoul is conscious of all bodies. The supersoul is present in all bodies without distinction. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manoveeshtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sathajam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitantam Sajivam Sadhaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lata Shri Vishwanathamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagadapate Gopesha Gopikapata Radha Mata Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripe Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namya Yogeshvara Mancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patikana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. So this is a very important verse in Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna is telling to Arjuna what is the characteristic of a devotee. The word devotee means someone who is very devoted. And we are all devoted to so many things. We're devoted to different causes. We're devoted to different people. But here it is stated very nicely that no matter how different we all are, the nature of a devotee is that the devotee is always having what we call transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge is knowledge that transcends the body. That is why it is known as transcendental knowledge. We are very accustomed to being trained in material knowledge. But the problem with material knowledge is it comes with the body and it ends with the body. No matter how much knowledge we have, you will realize that you cannot carry this knowledge with you to your next life. And no baby in this world is born with previous degrees. Right? If we work very hard to get our LLBs and MSCs and MBAs, next life, you don't bring them with you. You don't see the baby coming out of the mother with all the degrees intact. Baby starts from the start. In fact, baby doesn't come into the world even with anything on. Nothing. There's never been a baby born with pampers or diapers. And there's never been a baby who's born who doesn't cry when they're born. That's the other thing about it. Have you noticed the beauty of life? When a child is born and the child doesn't cry, we all get worried. But when we give the child a good slap in the back and the child starts crying, we all start laughing. That's the irony of life. We don't realize that the nature of this world is that everything that comes has to go. So material knowledge is different from transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge speaks about something which is within us, and that is known as the Atma. And that's why this verse is important, because we live in a world where we're all different. And it's very easy for us, because of our differences, to start judging each other or to start discriminating each other. It's important sometimes to understand that there is difference between people. That's natural. But the verse here that Krishna is talking about is saying that a true devotee sees everyone with an equal vision. The word equal vision actually means samadarshinaha. And in Sanskrit, samadarshinaha just doesn't mean one who has equal vision. But the important thing is, once we have equal vision, how do we behave is very important. Very often, we lose faith in spiritual life because we see people going to the temples and they behave in one way. When they come out of the temple, they behave in a different way. And the younger the generation is, the sharper it becomes to see this difference. And that's why they get tired of going to temples. And that's why when our mothers keep telling us you have to go to temple, many of us after a while grow up thinking, well, what's the point of going to temple? Because the people we see in the temple don't behave themselves when they're outside of the temple. When we are all in this hall now, we are in the best of behavior. We have to be, isn't it? After all, you want prasadam, you have to behave. But if you're not in the hall, the real test of our behavior is within the four walls of our own houses, within the four walls of our own conscience. That is what this verse is speaking about. So equal vision is not speaking about the human idea of equal rights or non-equal rights. That's a different topic altogether, because it's still speaking about bodily differences. But here Krishna is speaking about the concept that goes beyond that. Samadarshinaha means how we see others with our vision and how we behave with them. That's very important. And the word that's really important here is the word, two words, vidya and vinaya. This is very important. Vidya means knowledge, right? And this knowledge that we talk about is not the knowledge of the material world. This is the knowledge that all of us are coming from one source. And that is why we are all actually equal. This is the starting point, and it's very, very important. A Krishna conscious person does not make distinction between species or castes. Prabhupada writes in the purport. We may be born into different families. If you notice, we have all come from very different backgrounds. I'm sure if we ran a straw poll now, each one of us will have a different background. And each one of us may have come from a different part of India, a different part of the world, and each one of us may have a different way of looking at things. Isn't it true? We always have differences in that sense. But Bhagavad Gita tells us a devotee does not take too much, does not take into consideration the fact that we are all so different as an obstacle That is very important. That is why in Bhagavad Gita it is stated that on the material plane, we may all be coming from different castes, different classes, but when we come together to hear about Krishna, then we are here for one purpose. And that purpose is to become connected with who we really are. So this is a very important point in Krishna consciousness. Which is why it is stated nicely that a Krishna conscious devotee respects everyone. Respects everyone. Why? Not because he has to respect them, but because in everyone there is the presence of Krishna as the super soul. And every person is ultimately connected to Krishna. It is stated in Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna says nicely in the 2nd canto, 9th chapter, 34th verse. It's one of the very important verses. It is known as the Chatushloki of Srimad Bhagavatam, 4 seed verses. And there it is stated very nicely, Riteritam yat pratiyeta, na pratiyeta chami. Tadvidvan atmano maya, yatha vaso yatha dhamha. Krishna tells Brahma, Brahma, you please know one thing. Anything in this world that appears to be valuable, if it has no connection to me, actually it has no value. If it has connection to me and materially it does not look like it has value, then it still has value. But if externally it looks very valuable, but it is not connected to Krishna, then it has no value. Why? Because that which is connected to Krishna will never be temporary. It will go beyond this body. But that which is not connected to Krishna, like everything else, like our sharir, like our bodies, it must end. So that is why a sage is one who sees the world in that way. If each one of us were to start looking at the person next to you and decide that it's not important where he comes from, or what he looks like, or how they speak, or what language they have, or what culture they have, more importantly is, are they somehow or another connected to the Supreme Lord? That is the point. That is the most important thing. The only problem with this is our mind. Our mind is the biggest obstacle to accepting this fact. You know, the nature of the mind is, in Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, nature of mind is known as chanchal. Chanchal means always restless. If I told all of you now that I'm going to speak for 2 hours, in about half an hour you will get up. Because it's too long, you know. Already if I go on beyond maybe 8:15, 8:20, I think I'll have trouble. It's very difficult. And forget about adults. Look at our children today. Look at the children. The children cannot keep still because it's their nature. It's their nature. They are chanchal. That's why whenever we have programs in Singapore, the first thing we tell everyone is don't worry about the children. If they are running around, it's their nature to run around. If you all start running around, then there is a problem. So we don't worry about children because it's their nature. Never mind, they have to make noise, what to do? They are like that. But the mind will run with the children. And the mind will be very difficult for it to rest in a place like Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. If I asked everyone in this assembly for the next five minutes, please don't think of pink elephants. Immediately you start thinking of pink elephants. I don't know whether they exist, but you will think of them. Because it's the nature of the mind. So Bhagavad Gita tells us something very important. It tells us that the mind will always look at us, each other, along a bodily platform. That's the nature of the mind. But the nature of the soul is to actually look at each other on a spiritual plan. That is very important. Srila Prabhupada created the International Society for Krishna Consciousness actually based on 518. Because 518 says that a gentleman or a gentlewoman, a devotee, is one who sees beyond our color, our skin, and where we come from. That is the key of what a devotee is. The moment we discriminate in this material world, and we say, I am different from you and you are different from me, that differentiation in Bhagavatam is known as Tasya bhinna drisho. Bhinna means different. Drisho means we are seeing differently. The moment we see things differently on the bodily platform and we translate that into the spiritual world, we will become disturbed. But if we say that we accept that we may be different materially, but we accept that spiritually we are united in our cause, then it becomes very natural. It becomes very natural. There will always be some devotees and some persons in this world who are intellectual. There will be some who are more Kshatriya-like. For example, those who may be more in the governing sector. There will be some who are very expert with making money. I know of some friends who cannot but make money. Anything they touch, they have to make money. And I know of friends who anything they touch, they have to lose money. So, it's different. People are different. We're all different. But Bhagavatam tells us that when we look at people beyond these physical differences, then what do we understand? We understand that each one of us is first Atma. And second, as Prabhupada says in the purport, we are all part of Paramatma. Paramatma is the super soul. And the super soul is in everyone's heart. In the Catholic theology, there's a very nice statement, that's made. Christ is the silent witness in each household. It's a very nice statement. He's a silent witness in everyone's heart. And that is actually very much what the super soul is in all our hearts. It is stated in Bhagavatam that the more we hear the super soul, the more the super soul becomes louder in our lives. How do we hear the voice of super soul? The voice of the super soul is very often heard on the basis of what we call materially as our conscience. Our conscience. You will realize that even if you want to perform something which you know is not right, you actually know about it deep inside. It's only a question of whether you want to hear it or you want to ignore it. Each one of us has that moral compass. In the material world, we call it morality. In the spiritual world, we call it the super soul. So it doesn't matter what you call it. But Krishna always has the capacity to tell us what is right and what is wrong. It's only a question of whether we want to hear. It's only a question of whether we want to hear. Krishna was available to the Kauravas in Mahabharata. Duryodhana was seeing Krishna almost on a daily basis sometimes. Can you imagine? We see Krishna once a week in the hall. Beautiful form of Krishna. But Duryodhana, he would wake up and he would come out, and if Krishna was in Hastinapur, he would see him. He would sometimes invite him to have prasadam with him. So, all the demons, they also saw Krishna all the time. But Krishna was also in their hearts. And yet, they ignored what Krishna said. When Krishna went to see the Kauravas and told them, please let us avoid warfare, he did not come only as Krishna. He came as the voice of the super soul. Externally, he appeared as Krishna, but internally, he was speaking as a Paramatma in everyone's heart. And yet, the Kauravas chose not to hear him. The Pandavas, like Arjuna, they chose to hear Krishna. And because they heard the voice of Krishna, and they heard the instructions of Krishna, the result was they became free of this material birth and death. That's why in 3:31 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Ye me matam nidam nityam, anutishtanti manavaha, shraddhavanto anasuyanto, tepi muchanti karmabihi. Very important verse. And Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, those who follow my instructions, and how to follow Krishna's instructions? Two ways. With faith, shraddhavanto. You put faith into what you hear and try it. You realize that if we don't have faith, we cannot act on anything. If you were to learn driving, for example, you learn it by theory first, isn't it? I don't know how it is here, but there you learn it theoretically. You learn where you press the brake pedal and where you press the accelerator pedal. And chances are you never probably have got into a car. The day you get into the car after you pass your theory, what happens? You are told to press the brake pedal and you're told to press the accelerator pedal, depending on where you are. Now, because you have knowledge of what is where, you then act on it. This acting on knowledge is defined in our sastras as faith. So faith is not blind faith. When we read the Bhagavad Gita, we never tell anyone that you just accept it and forget about everything else. No. In fact, we encourage each and every one of you in this audience to test what you have read. But the only way you can test what you have read is to act on it. Otherwise, we cannot understand what equal vision is. Which is why it's very important for us to not only speak about Sastric knowledge, but we have to translate it into behavior. And that is why in this verse, Krishna is saying that a true devotee, a true sage, he has two things. He is knowledgeable of what? He is knowledgeable that Krishna is the super soul in everyone. He knows that Krishna is Paramatma in everybody's heart. And therefore everyone becomes special because they are carrying Krishna in them. Second, he knows that everyone is not this material body. If we were this material body, then very simply speaking, we would be always living forever. But this material body dies. When the body dies, you always never refer to the body as he or she. You will say that the body is lying here or the body is lying there. And no one in their right mind will ever say, my grandmother has passed away, she is now in her body, we will continue to keep her body because she's still inside the body. There is no culture in this world that even accepts that. No culture in this world. So even if we can recognize it or we can't recognize it, the point still remains that we are not this world. That is why the true sage, he understands one, Krishna is in the heart of everyone. Therefore everyone is special. Second, everyone is special because everyone is not this body. They are actually part and parcel of Krishna. Part and parcel of God. This is very important. The moment we accept that everybody, as in not everybody, but also everybody becomes what we call a temple of God. And that is why a devotee sees beyond the differences that we see today. They see beyond that to understand that everyone in this world is actually going through the same things. And that's why equal vision is needed. Why is everyone going through the same things in this world? Because the nature of the world is that the moment you are born, you are subject to the miseries and the anxieties of the material world. No one can escape it. You all know that there are three kinds of material miseries, isn't it? What's the first material misery? Even if you say, Prabhu, I'm not very miserable, then I'll tell you that even if you're not miserable, the cousin of misery is always there. And the cousin of misery is anxiety. And that one nobody escapes. Like I told you, if I take too long, you also become anxious when it's prasadam going to be served. If someone disturbs you, you also become anxious. Have you noticed how your day always begins with your mind telling you, I have to do this, I have to do that, and you're very anxious. Now we're coming to the weekend. Chances are your mind gives you a bit of relaxation. But when Sunday night comes and you know you have to go back to work, then all the anxieties will begin. Those who are married, I tell everyone, they think that those who are not married, they are very peaceful. Those who are not married, they look at everyone married and say, how nice it is to be married. Those who are married will secretly tell you, no, it's better you just stay away. Then those who are married, they want to have children. Then they see those who are having children, see so many people having children, they look so happy. Then you talk to those who have children, they'll say, oh, we wish for a while that, we were back in the days when there were no children running around. Everyone looks at everyone and says, you are happier than I am. But the truth is, that person also says, no, actually you are happier than I am. In this material world, the strange thing is, when we meet each other, we don't discuss how happy we are. We tend to compare how miserable we are. Have you noticed that? Prabhu, you don't know, my life is so difficult. After speaking about his dramatic life, then you say, you think your life was difficult? Wait till you hear my life. And ironically, we are here challenging each other about how miserable we are. It's an irony. But no one escapes it. Everyone is subject to it. Why? Because the moment you are born into this world, the nature of the world is such that you will be subjected to misery. This is a fact. It's very important. It is stated in Shastras, Dehendriya Prana Manodiyamyo. The first line of this verse is so nice. It says that the moment you have a body, Deha, what happens? Immediately, this body is subjected to thirst and hunger. And it's true. Every now and then we become hungry or thirsty. We can't escape that. Then, what happens is the senses are always dragged here and there. It's true also. Have you noticed how your senses have a habit of moving here and there? Where your senses go, your mind will go. And sometimes, when the senses are running everywhere, the mind becomes exhausted because it has to run with the senses. Then Bhagavatam tells us, intelligence runs after that which cannot be obtained. This one I like. Intelligence runs after that which cannot be obtained. And what are we trying to obtain? We are trying to obtain permanent happiness in a temporary world. Just think of that statement. It just doesn't make sense. How do you get permanence in something which is vested by nature as temporary? If your investment is on a floating platform, how will the platform and your investment become stable? It must float with the platform, isn't it? But if your investment is on something steady, then it will become stable. So where are we investing our vision? That's the question this verse is asking. If our vision is confined to how we look, what we wear, where we come from, what status we are, then we will always be up and down with everyone. We will gravitate to those whom we think will suit our personality. And we will ignore or we will judge those whom we don't understand. But Bhagavatam tells us that a true sage, a true devotee, he understands that by nature we cannot be the same. We are all made differently. The moment you accept this fact, you will expect less. And the moment your expectation drops, you become more peaceful. Have you noticed in life, expectation is the problem for all your disappointments? I look at someone, I expect them to be nice to me. Oh, he never said Hare Krishna to me. So I become upset. Now we all come here and we are sitting down. After this, we have prasadam. Right now, nobody is very worried because everyone is concentrating. You're all looking at me, you're not looking at each other. But the moment this finishes and we start having prasadam, we're going to start moving around. Then what happens is, the social aspect of the program comes in. Now if I forget to say Hare Krishna to someone whom I've known, you may become upset. Or sometimes we have groups of people who hang around together somewhere here, groups of people who hang around there, and then we go back disturbed because she said Hare Krishna to me, or she didn't say Hare Krishna to me, or he ignored me, but he said Hare Krishna to the man next to me, and I feel very upset about that. We go to social functions and that's what happens. And we bring the same idea into the spiritual world. When we do that, we cannot be peaceful. We cannot be peaceful. That's why the sage with equal vision, he has one nature. The first was Vidya, but the second is more important. It is known as Vinaya. Vidya Vinaya. Vinaya means gentleness. That's why the nature of a devotee is gentle by nature. Gentle doesn't mean that the devotee is not strong. In this material world, if you are gentle, you're considered to be a bit weak. You are considered to be someone who is prone to exploitation. But in Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, gentleness is not a compromise. Gentleness means we understand that each and every one of us has a different mentality. This is a very important point. You know Prahlad Maharaj, right? Prahlad Maharaj is a very famous devotee of the Lord. And he was actually very, he was so much harassed by Hiranyakashipu, his father. But eventually, Krishna protected him. But when Krishna protected him as Lord Nrsimhadev, and he asked him at the end, after he had killed Hiranyakashipu, he asked him this very important question. And the question was, now Prahlad, ask me for anything, and I will give it to you. And the first thing Prahlad asked was not for the kingdom. He didn't ask for a big bank balance. He didn't ask for good wives and children. But he said, I pray that my father, who in his whole lifetime had forgotten you, would somehow or another get the shelter of your lotus feet. Because in Prahlad Maharaj's heart, he did not see a father who was a demon. He saw a soul who had forgotten who he really is. And this is a very important point in Bhagavatam. Have you noticed in Bhagavatam, all the devotees of the Lord, they have never counteracted material energy. Look at Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die in 7 days. And if you remember, he was cursed by the boy, Shringi Brahmana. Why? Because he was very thirsty and hungry, and he went into the hermitage of the sage Samika Rishi. And when he saw that the sage was very calmly seated remembering Krishna, he got a bit upset. He expected that the sage should take care of him. And in that expectation, there was retaliation. What happened? Because the sage did not speak to him, for that moment he thought, I am a king. Is it not proper etiquette that you should just come and receive me? I'm thirsty, at least give me water. So he saw a dead snake, picked it up, and put it around the body of the sage, acting as if it's a garland. Actually, he did it in such a way that he was angry. And the moment he did that, he regretted what he did. He could understand that what he had done was not correct. And the moment he regretted it, at the same time, when Shamika Rishi's son, Shringi Brahmana, realized what Parikshit Maharaj had done to his father, he got very upset. And he cursed him to die in 7 days. Now when Parikshit Maharaj heard that he was going to die in 7 days, he could have counteracted. He could have. But Bhagavatam said, what did he do? Na asyata. He did not pratikurvanti. He did not counteract at all. Why? Because he saw the hand of Krishna. He saw the hand of Krishna. He believed that there must be a reason why I'm being put in this situation. So instead of wasting my time running after someone and fighting with them, I rather see the hand of Krishna. So someone who understands that everyone is part and parcel of Krishna, and understands that everyone becomes an instrument in the hand of Krishna, that devotee becomes free. Because he was gentle in behavior after he realized his mistake, he became free of counteraction. Otherwise, if I was in Parikshit Maharaj's shoes, I would have fought with Shringi Brahmana. I may have cursed him back, then he will curse me, then I will curse him. 7 days will go with me cursing him and he cursing me. And by the end of 7 days, I will die and I will not remember Krishna. But instead of wasting time fighting with each other, we better just study one shloka of Bhagavad Gita. Instead of criticizing someone in our hearts because they are different from us and because we don't understand who they are, better we use that time to chant one mala of Hare Krishna mantra. So much better, so much more peaceful. That is the meaning of one who is Vinaya. So gentleness means that on the strength of our faith in Krishna, we act. And how do we act? With faith, Shraddhavanto, and without envy. A true devotee of the Lord is never envious of anyone. Only if you are free of envy can you start seeing everyone with equal vision. The moment you have envy in the heart, it is very hard to see that there is any good in someone. Because you will always have pride. And pride is the cousin of envy. Pride comes first, and then we become envious. So we have to be very, very careful at this point. And that is why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the humble sage is one who sees with equal vision even a cow, even a dog, and even anyone else. Even if they are considered to be what we call an outcast. That is what he does. I want to end by telling you that in Bhagavatam, there is a very nice episode of a devotee who actually showed us this beautiful way of living. And he's known famously as Rantideva. Rantideva was a great king. And Bhagavatam tells us, not only was he a great king, but by heart he was a great devotee. And Bhagavatam tells us that at one point, he was actually doing a very long fast and remembering Krishna. So he took a very long fast and he stayed away from food for a long time and controlled his senses. And the day came for him to break his fast. And he sat down with his plate, he had some water, he had some food stuff. And the moment he sat down to eat, a Brahmana guest came. And the Brahmana said, I'm very hungry, O king. Would you mind giving me something? So Rantideva thought, how can I refuse someone who comes to ask me for something? So he gave it to him. So after giving it to him, he realized that now he had much less. Bhagavatam said that when he gave the Brahmana the food, he did not give the Brahmana the food because you are a Brahmana and therefore I must give it. Please remember that. In Bhagavatam it is stated that Rantideva gave the Brahmana prasadam because he perceived the presence of the super soul in this living entity. That's the exact words that is used in Bhagavad. The word that is used is Hari Sambandha Vastunaha. Hari Sambandha means one who has relationship with Hari. And one who has relationship with Hari, Vastunaha, he will see Hari in everyone. So that is why he gave the food to the Brahmana. If we think that he gave the food to the Brahmana because he's coming from a high caste, then the second act that came changes everything. Because while he sat down to eat something, at that point of time, a man from a lower class, he came. And traditionally, unfortunately, in society, there is this perception that if you're from lower class, you are considered lower and less qualified. So this man approached Rantideva and said, King, I have not eaten much. Can you give me some food? Rantideva had given a significant portion already to the Brahmana. Without hesitation, he took whatever foodstuff that was available and gave it to this man. And as he gave it to him, he perceived the hand of Krishna in this personality also. When the Brahmana had left, and when this man from a lower class had left, Rantideva only had water. And he was going to break fast with water. When he was just going to take a drop of water, someone known as Swapakecha. Swapakecha means someone who is a dog eater. Someone who is considered extremely low in terms of behavior. Very crude, maybe. What happened? He came with his dogs. And he said, Master, my dogs and me, we have not been eating for a long time. And we are starving. Can you give us something? If there's no food, at least some water we will want. And Rantideva, he thought, Krishna has come, not someone else. It's Krishna who has come. So what did he do? In perceiving the presence of the Super Soul, he took whatever water he had and he also gave it to him. And he said, please take it and please share it with the dogs also. Now at that point of time, all three personalities who came before Rantideva, they appeared before him again. But this time they were not the Brahmana, they were not the man from the lower class, and they were not the dog eater. They were actually the Devatas. The Devatas had come to test Rantideva because Lord Vishnu had told them that of all the exalted devotees that I have, Rantideva is one who sees everyone with equal vision. He is very unique in that sense. So they came to test Rantideva. In front of Krishna, we all behave ourselves. In front of devotees, we put on our best behavior. But when we go out, when we go to work, when we meet people on the streets, how do we behave with them? Do we think that I am devotee, therefore I am more superior? And you are not so much of a devotee, therefore you are a bit inferior. We forget that Krishna is in their hearts, and we forget that for a long time, we were not devotees. And maybe we forget that even now, we may appear as devotees, but by behavior, we may be far from being devotees. So Vinaya means gentleness, but gentleness also means the humility to accept that we are also nothing. And we are also part and parcel of a big family. It requires humility. So humility and gentleness. H and G. These two qualities are the qualities that we must learn. Why we say we must learn? Because in material world, it is just the opposite. Instead of being humble, we are taught to be proud. In the corporate world, if you are very submissive to someone, you'll be eaten up for breakfast. In the corporate world, they say it's every man for himself. And yet our whole Vedic culture says that one who is submissive and humble, the kingdom of God is open to him. It's even stated in other religions. Why? Because anyone who is genuinely humble, he will always attract the goodness and the blessings and the goodwill of people. Eventually, the humble man always melts the hearts of all living entities. Rantideva did that. He melted the hearts of the Devatas. And they came and asked him, my dear Rantideva, what is your attitude and what is your psychology? What is it that drives you to actually see everyone as part and parcel of Krishna? And he chanted a very beautiful verse. You can chant with me. This verse is from the 9th canto, 21st chapter, 22nd verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nakameham gatinishvarat param astar diyuktam apunar bhavam va artim prapadye akila deha Antarstito yena bhavantya dukkha nakameham gatinishwaratvaram astadiyuktam apunarbhavam va artim prapadye akhila deha bhaja antarstito yena bhavantya dukkha. And the translation is very nice. Rantideva said, I do not pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the 8 perfections of yoga. Generally, when we start doing yoga, or when we start coming to the spiritual world, we want what we call siddhi. But he says, I don't want any siddhi. Then he tells Krishna, I don't even want to come out of this repeated birth and death. He says, what I want is I just want to stay amongst the living entities who are suffering. And I want to be able to serve them by taking away their distresses so that they become very happy in Krishna consciousness. Isn't that the same mood that Srila Prabhupada had when he came to the West? This was the same mood he had. This prayer of Rantideva is the same mood that Prabhupada had. And Prabhupada writes in the purport after this prayer, he says that Rantideva was a pure devotee because he was always conscious of Krishna in the hearts of the living entities. That is the meaning of a sage with equal vision. He was always conscious. He always understood that everyone without exception is suffering in this world. He understood that. And isn't it true, Prabhus and Matajis? Is there anyone in this world who has never suffered? Like I said, we can compete for suffering. That's how bad our sufferings are. And always remember, for each person, his suffering is genuine and it is real. When a child is in 6th standard and they have a big exam, my daughter has a big exam this year in Singapore and she's in the 6th standard. And she's really worried. Now my boy, he's already in the secondary 4, Cambridge. That means he's maybe, 10th standard, if you follow that way. And he looks at her and tells her, it's nothing, this exam is nothing, it's not a big deal. But what I fail to realize, and what I'm beginning to understand is, at the time when we were in 6th standard, that's all we knew. We didn't know what happened after that. So our suffering at that point was genuine. It was real. When a child cries, because of the anxiety of a mother moving away, the mother thinks, I'm not going anywhere. But the child doesn't know it. So for the child's perspective, that is real. That is real. So every difficulty we face, a devotee will recognize that that difficulty is real. It is real. The problem with devotees sometimes is we say, Prabhu, everything is Maya. So your problem is also Maya. If your problem is Maya, it's temporary, don't worry about it. And this is how we become very hard in our hearts. Because we don't realize that everybody is suffering without exception. And the pain that they suffer in this material world is real. Because we are still identifying with the body. This is a very important point. In Bhagavatam it is stated very nicely. One Avadut, there was an Avadut and he was approached by a devotee and he was asked, who is your guru? Because I see that you are traveling around the world and you are so wise and so realized. And the Avadut said, I have 24 gurus. Normally we have one guru, but he said we have 24 gurus. And my first guru is actually the earth, Mother Earth. So then he was asked, what have you learned from Mother Earth? And he said something very nice. He said, Bhutai akramyamano api, Diro, Daivo, Vasa Anugavi, Tadvidvan, Atmano Maya. So this is very nice point. Bhutai akramyamano api. He says, what I have learned from Mother Earth is that every living entity is actually harassed by the world around him. And even though he's harassed by others, he doesn't realize that the people who are harassing him, they are compelled by the material modes of nature to behave in funny ways. This is such a nice point. Sometimes we look at someone who is harassing us and we say that, why is he harassing us? Bhagavatam says he's harassing because he's also harassed. He's also harassed. And the person who's harassing him, they are also harassed. The problem is, we don't stop harassing people. The devotee stops that cycle. So if someone harasses me, I don't harass them. I pray for them and I serve them. If I serve them and I pray for them, I become free of the harassment. They become free of anxiety. And that's how they become devotees. This is a beautiful formula. And he says this nice point. He says, Na chale marga. Tadvivan na chale marga. Whatever that happens in this material world, never become deviated from your devotional service. Never become deviated from devotional service. And this is how he ends that verse. So the conclusion of this point is that the characteristic of a great devotee is that he understands with knowledge, vidya, who he is, where we have come from, and how we are all part and parcel of the same Father. We can't run away from that. We may look different, but we are all of the same stock, finally. And because he understands that, he acts on it. Action. How does he act on it? By becoming gentle in his treatment and his movements and his dealings with the living entities. If he is harassed, he does not react by harassing. He reacts by praying, by serving. You can melt anyone's heart in this room if you continuously serve them lovingly. If they are very angry with you, you keep serving them, eventually their anger has to go. This is the nature of devotional service. And the last point that is important from this verse is that in devotional service, it doesn't matter, Prabhus and Matajis, your background or where you come from. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what part of the world you come from. In the whole Bhagavatam and history of devotional service, we have seen all kinds of devotees. You remember Kubja? Kubja was the hunchback. She was very ugly. Nobody liked her. She was only smearing sandalwood on Kamsa. But she had a desire to serve Krishna when he came to Mathura. What did she do? She applied sandalwood on him. And he became so pleased with her that he just put one hand under her cheek, her chin, the other feet, he put his feet on her feet, and he just cracked her, and she became very straight. And Bhagavatam said the moment she looked very straight and beautiful, she became so beautiful that the whole Mathura, there was no one as beautiful as Kubja. My Guru Maharaj used to say she became Miss Mathura. She became so beautiful. At that moment, everyone became attracted to Kubja. But Krishna was always attracted to Kubja not because of external beauty. He was attracted to Kubja, Bhagavatam says, because of her service. It is service that attracts Krishna. It's not who you are and where you come from. It's what your heart is and what you do for Krishna. Look at Gajendra. Gajendra was an elephant, isn't it? What could he do? As an elephant, all he could do was get stuck 1,000 years under the clutches of a crocodile, and then he prayed very hard to Paramparayanam, the source of all shelters, the shelter of all shelters. And his prayer was heard by Krishna, and Krishna came and delivered him. Look at Sudama. Sudama was a Brahmana, very poor. Krishna was not the kind of personality who only mixes with some kind of people. I only mix with rich people. No. When Sudama came to see Krishna, Krishna welcomed him like he was a king. And it is stated in Bhagavatam, when Sudama went to sleep in Dwarka, he thought he had died and gone back to heaven. That's how much of a dream it was. And even though Sudama did not ask a single thing from Krishna, by the time he went home, he took a turn, he left from Dwarka and he walked to Porbandar. And when he reached there, he was shocked. He thought he reached he thought he made a wrong turn. Because he saw a palatial building. Then he saw the goddess of fortune walking to him and he realized, no, that's not goddess of fortune, that's my wife. And she said, I don't know what you did, but whatever you asked from Krishna, it was perfect. Because we got the building, we got everything, look at our children, we got so much food. And Sudama thought, I didn't ask anything from Krishna. I went as a beggar and I left as a beggar. But Krishna, he served me. He served me. So you see, the whole history of Bhagavatam is full of people who were not of high class, but they had the highest of devotion. Vidura, Vidura was known as Dasi Putra. He was not even considered of royalty because of his lower birth. And yet when Krishna came to Hastinapur and Duryodhana said, you have to stay with us and eat our prasadam, Krishna said, I'm going to stay with Vidura because Vidura is devotee. And Vidura is considered not very high class. What about Jatayu in Ramayana? Jatayu was only a bird, a vulture. Against Ravana, he had no chance. When Jatayu fought Ravana, he knew the outcome was he would die. But he fought anyway, because his heart was with Rama. And what did Rama do when he saw Jatayu? When he saw Jatayu, he said in Ramayana that today my loss of Sita is less painful to me than the loss of Jatayu. Because he gave his life in trying to save Mother Sita. And he promised Jatayu, as Jatayu was going to die, that I would perform your last rites as a son would perform them for his father. And the last point I want to tell you is this beautiful point from Lord Ram in Ramayana. Ramayana, there is a point, when Lord Ram, Mother Sita and Lakshman, they were all in Chitrakoot. And they were going to pass by a river. And there was a riverman, the boatman, the Kevan. And when Lord Ram came, he said, I have to cross over this river, but I don't have any money. So can I cross? And the Kevan said, you can cross, but I have one thing I want. And if you give it to me, I'll allow you to cross. So Ram said, I don't have anything, but you ask and you tell me what you want. And the Kevan said, I want the opportunity to wash your lotus feet, both your lotus feet. And Lord Ram said, of course. And he started laughing. Now if you have read Ramayana, you know that Lord Ram hardly laughs. He's very noble and very serious. Hardly he laughs, only 1 or 2 episodes, and this episode he laughed. So Lakshman and Sita became very upset. Lakshman was thinking, up to the point when this sister-in-law of mine came into my life, I was washing Lord's feet all the time. Sita was thinking, when I came into my husband's life, I have to compete with my brother-in-law. Because he always wants 1 feet of the Lord and I have to wash only 1 feet. Then Lakshman was thinking, but after my sister-in-law came, now she won't let me wash both his feet. So I wash 1 feet and she washed 1 feet. So both became upset and they turned to Lord Ram and said, how come today you are giving this man just a person who rides the boat? He's a boatman, he's nothing. Why does he get a chance to wash your lotus feet? And Lord Ram said, in previous birth, this Kevat, this boatman, he was a tortoise. And at that time, I was lying on the ocean of milk, Svetadvip, as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. And you, Sita, you were Lakshmi, you were massaging my feet. And you, my dear brother Lakshman, you were Seshanag, and you were protecting me. This tortoise was swimming in the ocean and saw my lotus feet, and he had a desire to serve my lotus feet. So he crawled onto you, Seshanag, and he came towards you, Mother Sita. But what did you do? You pushed him away. You said, no, this Lord's feet is my monopoly. No one else can touch. You please leave. And the moment you pushed him, Seshanag just lifted him up and he went back into the water. But his desire never went away. And because I am the Lord of all who lives, and because I am in the heart of everyone, I recognized his desire. And I promised him in his heart that in the next life, you will come as a boatman, and I will come before you, and I will give you the benediction of washing my lotus feet. Because both of you denied him that chance. So now Sita and Lakshman realize, okay, that's why he gets the chance. So the boatman washed Lord's feet to his heart's content. And then they boarded the boat and they crossed over. And when they reached there, Lord Ram said, I have 1 gold coin somewhere. I don't have it now, but I will give it to you. And the boatman told him something beautiful. He said, my dear Lord, when 2 people of the same profession help each other, we don't pay each other. So Lord Ram said, what do you mean 2 men of the same profession? My profession is very different from yours. And the Kevat boatman said, no, my Lord, our profession is the same. Today, I carried you across this river. I pray that when my time comes and I have to leave this body, I pray that you will carry me across the river and the ocean of birth and death. And when you do that, you please remember me, my Lord. For all my inadequacies and all my difficulties, please remember me. Jai Raj Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai Shri Guru Parvati. Ananta Kori Vaishnavindra ki. Jai Gauri. Thank you for your time and thank you for your patience. Balaram Prabhu, what happens now? I think the children are going to recite the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Right, Prabhu? Are they going to recite 15 chapters? So let's welcome them with a loud Hari Bol. Hari Bol! Very soft. We have to be louder, you know. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! These children are our future. So let's hear them when they chant the 15th chapter.